Hey you guys, so when I moved from Washington DC to Toronto, I kind of used that as an excuse to start afresh. Not that you have to move countries in the middle of a pandemic to start anew, but if you do have to move cities for whatever reason and you're landing up in a new place, why not use that to start with a blank slate? One thing I really wanted to refocus and spend more time on was mindfulness and Buddhism. And both of those practices really emphasize living in the moment, in the present, and being really grateful for the things we have and valuing what we have. Reflecting over then my past 3 months in Toronto, there are basically 5 subtle things that I've really loved about this city. And these are things I didn't really find in many articles and things online when I was first anticipating this move in DC and looking up top things in Toronto. Maybe the fact that I like these more subtle things is also a reflection of the fact that I've kind of lived in at least 5 different places for 3 months or more, so I do have a kind of idea of what it's like living in a couple of different places and the things we can or cannot take for granted and things we should kind of even fight for or really value when we do have them. Okay, so with that and without much further ado, here are the 5 more subtle things I've really loved about Toronto in my 3 months here in the middle of a pandemic. Number 1 is the Toronto Public Library. Okay, and even if you aren't super into reading a lot of books, trust me, the library probably has something for you. It's by far the most incredible public library system I've ever seen, and they have facilities that I think compare with what I've seen at a private Ivy League university, except for the fact that it's totally free. Here are some of the really incredible things. The library has branches basically all over the city. I mean, I've yet to go to a neighborhood where I haven't seen a branch nearby. And if you want any book, and I've yet to find a book that I couldn't find in the library, they will literally have the book delivered to the closest branch to where you live so you can pick it up as conveniently as possible. Not only physical books, they even have all these online books and audiobooks for you to read and listen to whenever you want. And you get all these incredible magazines for free online as well. I'm talking about top publications. The library also gives you free access to this video streaming service, which has some of the most amazing and highly acclaimed film and cinema to view for free. A couple of months ago, I actually unsubscribed from Netflix because I wasn't really using it that much. And now that I have this free service, I just don't think I'm ever gonna get Netflix back again. Okay, but not only that, the library also organizes these talks with some really highly acclaimed people who are at the top of their field for the public to listen to and attend for free. And with the pandemic, you'd imagine maybe they'd stop doing these kinds of talks, but in fact, they actually shifted everything online and give people tickets to watch them virtually. It's incredible. I was recently one of a very small group of people listening to the founder of Radiolab talk about their experience there. There's a lot more than this about the library that I absolutely love, but I think if I keep talking about it, it could be a whole video of its own. So I'm just going to end this with a couple quick facts, which I found really incredible. There are about 100 branches of the Toronto Public Library all over the city, and about 70% of Torontonians actually use the library. So for a city as big as this, if you decide not to use the library, you're actually in the minority of people, which I just find absolutely mind-blowing. And I haven't even got to use the actual library space yet because of the pandemic, but I can't even imagine how great it would be to be able to use those spaces once they become available. And one more quick thing, it actually feels so good to have abandoned my Kindle and not give Amazon any more money for the books I want to read. Amazon is just a company that doesn't really align with my values and my ethics at all, so it feels really great not to give them more money. And I still almost feel especially weird when I used to buy books on mindfulness or nonfiction focused on society from Amazon. It just felt really strange. So I'm glad I just don't ever have to do that again. Number 2, bike share. Toronto's bike share system is just incredible. The first thing I did when I moved to Toronto was get my bike share pass. It's about $100 for a full year. And it's basically exclusively what I've been using to get around the city, even more than public transit or Uber or anything like that. I will one day get my own bike because those do run a bit faster. But having just moved here, I'd heard about all the bike theft that happens in Toronto, and I kind of just didn't want to have to deal with that, so I just went with bike share for now, and it's been a really great service, and it's an incredible way to get around the city. Number 3, it's incredibly easy to be vegan or vegetarian here. Something that was kind of on my mind for a long time was my eating habits, and especially eating red meat and chicken. In Buddhism, we learn about kind of practicing compassion towards all beings, and I kind of find that a bit difficult to do when I was eating red meat and chicken, and when dairy was a big part of my diet. But Toronto has made it so easy to be vegan. When I go to a grocery store, there are vegan options for almost everything you could ever want. There are about 5 different kinds of nut milks and they all actually taste incredible. There's almond, cashew, oat, pea protein, soy, hazelnut, you name a nut and there's probably a milk made out of it. They even have vegan replacements for butter and cheese and they all actually taste really good. They're not just some cheap tasting substitutes, trust me. The vegan restaurants here aren't just good for being vegan restaurants, they're actually just incredible standalone restaurants on their own. I can say for a fact that I just haven't missed dairy or meat at all since I've moved here. And it's especially because I think Toronto just made it so easy and so convenient and accessible to get alternate choices to those kinds of foods. Number 4, it's super diverse. So when I was in Washington DC, almost everybody dressed the same. They would wear chinos and would look like a mannequin that you would find at Brooks Brothers. Everybody also had one of 5 jobs. You would either be a lawyer, a policy analyst, a consultant, a government contractor, or working on Capitol Hill. In Toronto here, of the few people I've met so many different artists and musicians and DJs. People who have a lot of interests aside from their day jobs too. And it's also just a very multicultural city. And the few people I've met here, again, few because of the pandemic, I've already met people who kind of grew up in Portugal, some who grew up in Egypt, also of course people who grew up in Quebec, and also people who grew up in Toronto. But everybody kind of brings this kind of fresh take as to what they're doing, what their life goals are, how they just enjoy spending their time, and it's honestly so fun and incredible to just learn about their lives and what they're up to. The diversity of people also then brings with it a diversity of a lot of spices, restaurants, and food, right? And if one day you want to cook with incredible Middle Eastern spices, the other day you want to cook with some Japanese spices or Indian spices, you can literally find a specialty store selling all the spices and ones you haven't even heard of before on some street. It's amazing. Number 5 is incredible thrift shopping, vintage shopping, and just environmentally conscious shopping. Somehow nobody told me about how good the options were for thrift and vintage shopping in Toronto. Since I've moved here, I really haven't bought anything first-hand, or I guess new. Everything has been second-hand and high quality. And it actually feels so good to buy something which has been used before, which has some kind of character and is not kind of adding more to new production. And the stuff you can thrift is not just limited to clothing, it's actually even housewares and furniture. In terms of environmentally conscious shopping, I've also just seen more people in Toronto than I've ever seen in any other city use reusable bags for basically all of their shopping. I haven't seen anything close to this number of people anywhere before doing this. Alright you guys, those are the 5 more subtle things I've loved about Toronto, and this is a bit of a different video from my usual videos that tend to tackle more abstract ideas and concepts. But I think that if you only keep these ideas and concepts in our minds and more theoretical and abstractly, they don't really serve a great purpose and aren't really particularly useful, aside from maybe talking about them over a cocktail or something, or over dinner to impress somebody, maybe. I found that living according to some of these principles and ideas that I've discovered and really loved for myself kind of gives these like subtle moments of joy. Like for example, when I'm returning a book or picking a book up from the library, putting things in my reusable bag, using bike share instead of calling an Uber. Again, I'm going to emphasize the fact that these are subtle joys. They're like little moments where you suddenly feel a little bit happy, something extravagant and crazy. But you know, these subtle moments just sprinkled throughout your day really do make your day super pleasant. I'm curious if you've recently tried to translate some of your principles and ideas more into your actions recently, what the ideas or principles were, and what the action was. And if you haven't done that recently, maybe do it, because then you can kind of experience what this subtle joy is that I'm talking about. Alright y'all, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up because that's super encouraging to me. Subscribe to my channel so you know when my next video is out. And if you think somebody else would like this video, then share this video with them. And with that, I'll see you all next time.